Homeschooling is parenting. The first thing I need to look at in my parenting in my school is how healthy am I? Stress and anxiety, those things are contagious, and so our students will pick that up. Would I like to be my kid? When I look back over the day or over the week and the interactions I've had with my children and the atmosphere and the temperature of my home, would I like to have been my child? Is there any chance that my child has developed a bit of a dopamine addiction? Are they involved in watching TikTok or YouTube videos? Do they have a lot of vegging out time with a TV? Good Thursday afternoon, everybody. Hope you're having a good week and things are going well for you and yours and your homeschool. Today is Teaching Tips Thursday. It's a lot of fun. And I was just telling Brittany that I have a new weight loss plan. And when we're sitting here looking at all the monitors, I realized like I would be forward and she'd be back. And so she looks tiny and I look bigger. And so now it's like, I just go backwards and the dimensions work for it.
I lost 20 pounds on moving backwards.
It worked for me. It's hard when you're doing live TV.
Good morning, Lauren, over in the Facebook Live. And
She said good afternoon.
Sorry, good afternoon, sorry. Same with Melissa. Hey, Desiree, jumping in over on the app. Good morning and good afternoon to you too.
Oh my goodness.
It's morning somewhere.
It is. All right, well, hey, today I want to talk a little bit. I got a lot of good feedback came back from the posts that I put up in the app and in the Facebook group on how your first few weeks of homeschooling are going, and if maybe you need a little bit of a recalibration versus a reset, or things are going fantastic. And I notice that I'm going to touch on just some of the things today because there were so many things, different things you could talk about. But let's talk a little bit. As parents, homeschooling is parenting. That's it. We're just teaching kids math instead of driving. Right now I have a 16-year-old that I'm teaching to drive. I would much rather teach math. But it's the same thing. Oh, by the way, if you don't know, I'm Randy Pratt. I am the VP of Marketing here. This is Brittany Pratt. She is my daughter and also the publicist and social media manager,
strategist.
Yes.
I'm laughing because he's teaching my younger brother how to drive, but we carpool to work every morning and afternoon, and so I was laughing at him today because now that he's teaching my younger brother to drive, he's starting to get a little bit more jumpy as I'm driving, and I'm like, I got it, we're good, you've been good all this time, and now you're like,
Yeah, I've done 5. He's number 6 that I've taught to drive, and yeah, it can be a little stressful, right? But isn't that homeschooling? Like, and I'm teaching him life skills. When I teach him to go to the store and go shopping, when we teach them all of the skills, how to pick up after themselves, that's no different than teaching them math, language, science, history. We're just teaching them skills to be successful in life. So homeschooling is parenting. Sometimes we have been in the mindset that we take that segment of parenting and we farm it out to the government or a government school or a private school. They do that part of parenting and then they send them back and we just focus on a few of the softer skills. So when we're talking about some of these issues that we may be having with parenting, or with homeschooling, we're talking also about parenting issues, and so we have to look at that. And so when we're talking about a recalibration, when you recalibrate something, a recalibration is a tweaking, it's fine-tuning. There's a reset, which is a complete restart. You stop and you restart it. You know, there's a place where your computer, maybe you can close a few browser windows and catch some speed, and you can tweak it a little bit, recalibrate it, but you don't necessarily have to turn it all the way off and reboot it and restart it. Sometimes we need resets. Our family has resets. I would say 1 to 2 a year, we have a reset, where it's just like the train has gone off the rails and the only way to bring it back is a hard reset. Everybody sits down, we have a conversation, we put it back in order. The speed of life, it just is bound to go off the rails, and so for us that's normal. We expect it. A recalibration is you're tweaking things while it's in motion, and you're not necessarily looking to make huge changes. Now sometimes as parents, when life starts to feel out of control, I'm notorious for this, used to be worse when I was younger. When life would go out of control, I would begin a big project or something that I felt it would give me hope. It would be a way I would almost medicate the uncomfortableness of things being out of control. So sometimes it's real easy to just want to hit that reset button and try a reset versus maybe it's not time for a reset yet, but let's experiment a little bit, let's tweak it a little bit, and let's see if maybe we can keep it on the rails a little bit longer. Are you tracking?
I am
Tracking with me? That
And
was a pun.
We do have quite a few people who are teaching their kids to drive. Katie said, my dad liked to push his imaginary brake a lot when he taught me.
Yeah, we have an old car that I bought, 2003, and it has the emergency brake in the center, and my hand doesn't leave the emergency brake in the center, and I've been known to
The
hard
first
stop.
time he did it to me scared me so bad, I almost nicked the corner of a McDonald's drive-thru, and all of a sudden the car just stopped, and I panicked, and it was the emergency brake.
But I haven't punched a child since Carrie.
Since
Carrie scared me so bad. It was, yeah. Okay. We're way distracted.
Anyways, but it's driving. We're talking about driving
Yes.
and how it, you know.
Keeping on track. Okay. So what we're talking today is maybe just recalibration, evaluating some of the gauges, if you will, to see what in a student, like maybe our school year isn't going splendidly, perfect, and we can just look at, are there some tweaks we can go to make things a little bit smoother. By the way, I'd encourage you to comment, because Brittany is going to give 2,500 reward points to somebody in the Facebook group and 2,500 reward points to somebody in the app today, just for your participation in today's Facebook Live. Isn't that awesome?
That's awesome.
That's $25 of reward points just for making a comment that you get to kind of choose. I like giving out reward points when I don't have to do the work of it.
Of trying to find all the information to do it, make it happen.
It's harder in the app, because sometimes in the app you guys have nicknames, and cross-referencing it to find
Trying to
your
find
accounts.
your actual names and emails and accounts that correspond to your app name.
Yeah, so we're giving you $25 in reward points, man. I'm excited about it. So, okay. So let's talk a little bit about some of the things. So what I like to do is a mind map. That's how I think. So my mind map today would look something like this, where I got my student, and then I just brainstorm and I write things down. So one of the things I would think about would be psychological needs, parenting issues, triggers, or brain training. And so sometimes I draw pictures, sometimes I just write out my notes. And I'm the only one that can make sense of my notes, but that's because that's about what it looks like up here in my brain. So let's talk about a few things with our students that we can possibly, some recalibrations that we can make here to make things a little bit better. One of the first things I think we have to ask, because I'm big on this, is we get what we lead, and as parents we are leaders. Our children look up to us. Something I wish that I had understood better is that as a parent, I need to exhibit leadership skills. I need to exhibit self-control. I need to exhibit emotional intelligence and health. These are the things that I must have if I want my children to. And there are so many times that I have been, or I watch other parents who are extremely emotionally unhealthy, and then when their children are emotionally unhealthy, they're frustrated because of that. But it's not fair to ask those we lead to be something we're not. And so we have to be that first. And so the first thing I need to look at in my parenting and in my school is, how healthy am I? When we get to the school day, am I engaged? Like, am I excited about the school day? Am I ready to go? Do I take my phone and set it aside? Do I put aside the distractions? And do I stay present with my students? How do I handle the stress that's coming in my life? You know, stress and anxiety, those things are contagious. And so our students will pick that up. And if we're frustrated with the school and the way it's going, maybe we're just kind of angry about things, that transfers to those we lead. And so we have to be very careful to make sure that we are leading in a healthy manner. Okay, are my expectations realistic? This is a comment I came up with. Thank you. Love the child you have, not the child you wish you had. I know it wasn't always easy to love me when I was growing up versus the child they wished they had. We have to know that the Lord knew who He was placing in our lives to lead. And as our children go, sometimes there are going to be different challenges. Sometimes it's going to be easier, and sometimes it's going to be harder. And we have to have realistic expectations that in this lifetime, there will be days that things are awesome, 50% of the time. And then there will be days things are not so awesome. And when you have realistic expectations, it's much easier. If you said 50% of the time, let's be generous and say 4 days out of the week are going to be good, 3 days out of the week may be a little bit rough. When I have a rough day, I can just say, oh, there's 1, 2 more to go. And I can know that that's part of the expectation. We live in this world with, we love the pictures from Instagram and from Facebook and the social and the app. We love these pictures because they're encouraging, and we strive to achieve something in our schoolrooms and our families because of it. But we also have to remember that that's a moment in time, and it's not always the reality of the situation. The reality is often much messier than that. And so approach the day with realistic expectations. This may be a good day. If it's not a good day, I'm not going to get shaken. I'm not going to be destroyed and distraught. I'm not going to trash everybody's day because of it, because I know that 50% of the time, or 4 days out of the week are going to be pretty good days, and 3 days may not be so good. Okay. The last thing I would ask myself in my parenting is, am I somebody I would want to follow? Would I like to be my kid? When I look back over the day or over the week and the interactions I've had with my children and the atmosphere and the temperature of my home, would I like to have been my child? Would I want me for a dad? And sometimes that can be very sobering to say, you know what, I don't think I'd want to be my kid. So that's something that I can strive to do better. And I don't have to make this huge corrections. Incremental changes, little teeny changes. Like maybe sometimes it's just making sure that when I come home, I take an hour and I put my phone in the drawer and I just focus on the family and I'm present with them for an hour, and we eat together and I stay present with them. Maybe it's once a week, making sure that I can, we could watch something together or read a story together, do something like that that's engaging, or even take them out to lunch or do something fun like that. Okay, so that's a little bit of the parenting and some teaser questions that I would ask myself to recalibrate. Now, if one of those is really bad and maybe I have to do a reset, maybe sometimes it comes to the place where you actually have to do a hard reset and make some big changes in life because just tweaking it isn't going to work. But that's one thing we can do with parenting because we get what we lead. Yeah? Mm-hmm. Okay. So now let's look at the physiological issues. That was a bigger word. Physiological issues. Yeah. So maybe everybody else's home is a little different than ours. We've had a lot of kids, and sometimes life is happening and you're not really paying attention, and maybe the schoolroom gets a little bit messy. Maybe sleep times, they go to bed a little bit later. Maybe we're not, maybe we've had a few too many cereal suppers. Like maybe I've been in charge of supper for a little too long and we're eating cereal more than normal, and maybe I don't want to eat the healthier cereals, so we eat Captain Crunch and Cocoa Puffs, and so sometimes that happens. That's why we sit away from the monitor.
Somebody asked how that diet would work in real life, if it could work for them.
Which diet?
You're leaning back and losing weight.
Well, it does for you. If your perception is reality, then your perception of us leaning back would work.
For everybody who jumped in later, that had something to do with the very beginning of our life.
We're trying to position ourselves so that we look smaller in the camera. I look smaller in the camera. Brittany really doesn't have to worry about that. But okay. So some of the things that we may need to look at is sleep. We had a situation today, this very day, where a student was having a rough day. And what we realized is he's been setting his alarm clock very early and getting up. He has free reign of the house a little bit, and he was able to do some schoolwork and just kind of do his own thing. The problem is he wasn't getting enough sleep, and then he was listening to audios and doing a little bit at night, so he was getting very little sleep, and it caught up with him. And so we have to recalibrate and say, okay, we're going back to bedtime tonight at the right time, and don't set your alarm to wake up before 7 or 8 o'clock. So we recalibrated a little bit with him, and then we'll test that and see how it goes. Diet is a big one, and if you check out the nutrition of our students, it can have an impact. And so we have to look at, is the diet good? Is there anything that maybe they're not eating breakfast, or the breakfast they're eating doesn't necessarily have the nutritional requirements for good concentration, thinking, for attitude. Like, my goodness, there are vitamins that will make me have a really good attitude, and if I'm getting a little bit morbid, if I take the vitamin B's, I can come back up. And everybody knows, everybody will now they even ask, does Dad need to take a vitamin? Maybe. So diet is a big thing that we can look at with our students and say, and maybe that's something that we even cared about. Maybe it's not something that was important to us. Well, shame on our families and shame on our teachers for not caring. But we can care, right? And we can look and say, hey, is there anything I can do to help them nutritionally also? What about environment? Is the house noisy? Is the lighting good where we're doing schoolwork? Those are things that we can look at, like, do we have adequate place for them to do school? Now, it can be at the kitchen table. That's fine, but we want to be able to make sure that it's still a good environment for learning. Okay, I'll talk a little bit more on it. Distractions. For a student like myself who would have been easily distracted when my desk was near a window, I spent a lot of time outside the classroom while I was present in the classroom. To this day, I have a desk
Why did you choose
that's near the window in my office, and I spend a lot of time running through the field with the cows, even though I'm sitting at the desk.
And you're the one that chose the side closest to the window. That's amazing.
Because I wanted to run through the field with the cows.
Mental field trips.
Yes. So, in the school area, are there toys, anything that might just cause some distractions? Distractions, okay. So trying to eliminate distractions from the physiological space, the physical space. Okay, now let's talk a little bit about recalibrating the brain triggers. Understanding that we are habitual creatures and that we operate very much in habit. And to begin, the more the neuron path is strengthened, the more our habits become entrenched, so that we don't even think about half of what we do, right? So one of the things we need to look at, and it's a good thing, I think, to study even for ourselves for growth, is triggers. What are the triggers and what are the rewards? And some of the things that with homeschooling can be a little bit different. See, when you go to school, you get up in the morning, you eat breakfast, you change your clothes and prepare for the day, you get on a bus, you physically go to school, and from the moment day one of school starts, what do? They train you to sit at your desk, to pull out your schoolwork, to listen to the teacher, do what's said, and then they put you on the bus and send you home. You follow bells. Like, there's a structure in place that trains the student to learn. Or to create an environment where they're disciplining the students, so they don't have to, every day they don't teach the student, oh, you're at school now, it's time to learn. No, they're so used to it that they just kind of fall into it naturally. It's kind of like when we travel or drive to work every day, and then some days you get home and you think, I don't even remember the trip home. It's because your body really knows, your brain knows the trip, and so it makes that trip. Okay, so look at some things that might be triggers, like a schedule. Putting in place a schedule, setting an alarm, get an alarm clock, or set up your phone or your tablet or something that there's a schedule, so at 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock, whenever you want school to start. And it might just be a teaser. It might just be, ding, there it goes. Hey guys, we need to start thinking about school if you don't like hard schedules. But a schedule can help put the brain into that mode, and then everybody goes there and try to establish some habits, form habits to create that environment. I know a lot of families enjoy homeschooling in their pajamas. Some students, it may be hard because our pajamas are a trigger to relax, to sleep, to play. Coming out of pajamas and changing for the day and being dressed, brushing our teeth, getting ready, that can be a trigger that says the next thing I need to do is do schoolwork. So sometimes we may need to shake it up a bit and say, hey, we're not gonna do school in pajamas anymore. We're gonna change and get dressed and start the day. And then sometimes the room, the environment. So you may be, if it's at the dining room table where you have fun and play games and there's discussion and eating, and then all of a sudden we do school, you may want to try something that just says, this is now the schoolroom. So when we put down this tablecloth or this whatever, or we put this on the desk, this says it's school time, right? And so we create some kind of a trigger that we begin embedding into the fabric of our schoolroom that says, now it's time to do school. And then when we take that down and put it away, school is over, and now we can use the table for family and all of that. Okay, a couple of things then we want to ask. Skills. Are they developmentally ready for the work that we have? There was a post earlier on somebody who is struggling with America's Story 1. Their student didn't seem to be getting it, but the student was a second grader. I would absolutely say we don't recommend that program for second grade. And so if you're having somebody struggle with a second grade curriculum, with a third grade curriculum that's in second grade, then no, they're not developmentally ready for that level of work. And students, especially in elementary school, it's such a spectrum when a child is developmentally ready. And so, yes, there's times where it's laziness and will, but a lot of times it can also be an issue of they're just not ready. That maybe they haven't developed all the skills that they need to do that level of work. Sometimes it's the intensity of the work. They need to develop stamina, which would take me to, is a student capable of deep work? Can they concentrate on something? And I think, you could even just develop those skills by reading a book, by playing a game that takes a little bit longer where everybody has to stay focused in the game, having them just focus on one at a time. Deep work is where we don't have the distractions. Leads me into the next is there any chance that my child has developed a bit of a dopamine addiction? We as adults, it's so easy to develop. Our phones, if we're always reaching for our phones. We're in a building project right now. There's a camera at the building site. It's so easy to just want to check it and check it and check it. Nothing happening, but I just want to check it. And I have to force myself to leave it sometimes. So we can get we can have dopamine addictions as well, and so we have to really look at maybe it's tweaking. Is there media? Are they involved in watching TikTok or YouTube videos? Do they have a lot of vegging out time with a TV, or video games really bad for helping children concentrate? So looking at maybe tweaking and reducing the amount of time that's being spent with media, and maybe increasing the amount of creative play or art or something where they're actually focused on a project. The interruptions in a classroom, if there are interruptions continually happening, it's the same as a workplace. It takes 20 minutes for the brain to get back into the level of work. So if we have a lot of interruptions going on in our house, we're going to cause our kids to have to try really hard to get back. It's not just there's an interruption, the dog is barking and the baby needs something, and now we're all going to get back to work. The family takes a while, and so to expect our children realistically to be able to focus on school when there's a lot of interruptions and distractions in the house can be a challenge. And so I realize with a large family, we've had a lot of interruptions over the years with businesses going on and babies in the house and everything else. That's where you guys had gotten, Mom would do a lot of independent work where you guys were pretty independent, and she would actually have you schooling in an area that was a little bit separate from the main flow of traffic.
Right.
Okay, and then what is the talk track? What is the track that your children have developed when it comes to schoolwork, right? We can listen. They hate school. All right, well, that's their talk track. They hate school. Why do they hate school? Maybe they don't feel good about it or whatever, but we need to start helping them correct their talk tracks to align with what the way that they should be viewing it. School is it's a rite of passage. It's part of growing. It's part of learning and developing and preparing them for adulthood. And so, do they hate wanting to grow up and be an adult? Do they hate that they're going to have more responsibility and be able to drive and have jobs and have a family and all of these things? Because that's what they're doing. They're preparing themselves to live as adults. And so it's, school for schooling and education for the sake of school and education is pointless. Learning for the sake of growing into the next phase of life or the next season of life is extremely valuable. And so that's what we're doing. And everything with Masterbooks, we really try hard to make sure that we have the application. So when you're learning math, there's application to it. It's to help you be successful, and it's to help you understand the world around you and to understand the consistent nature of the Creator. Language, to be able to communicate effectively and to use your words intelligently to motivate people and to help bring about change. Social studies and history, to understand the world around you, to understand nature, or to understand human nature and what the successes and failures were. Those who don't learn from their history are destined to repeat it. We want to learn from our history so that we can live successfully in the future without repeating the mistakes of the past. So helping them understand the talk tracks that they may have about school, and then the reward system that we have, just finding ways to reward the behavior you want. Don't get hung up on what's wrong. Focus on the reward side of, hey, today was a good day. We did a good job of focusing, and so we got our math done. Reward. We're going to do something special today, or I'm just going to sit and give you a little bit more of my time and attention because you really applied yourself, and I'm proud of you for that, and the encouragement in that area. Think of our children like us. How do we want to be encouraged? If at the end of the day our spouse comes home and says, you could have done better, you could have cleaned the house, like, what did you do all day? You did nothing. You sat on your phone all day and did absolutely nothing. How does that make us feel, right? And so if they came home and said, wow, I appreciate that with everything you had to do and with all the kids, you got as much done as you did. That's pretty amazing. That little boost of appreciation helps you strive for just a little more. And so there's value in praise and reward. Okay, there's the teasers, a little bit of recalibration in some areas. Hopefully there was something that you could kind of grab from that and think about in your own situation and apply it. And you have to be very intentional, because if you don't, your brain will just continue to go back to the way it was before. And so writing it down, beginning to set up some kind of accountability, changing your triggers is a good way to implement to change your children's triggers. Okay.
Awesome.
Any questions, comments?
Yeah, it's resonating with a lot of people. Heather said, I feel like you have a hidden camera in my home. Everything you were talking about hits home here.
Can I say, when you saw the comments, it's part of the human, it's part of being human. Yeah, part of being human. That didn't sound smooth, but hear me out. Kids are messy. Marriage is messy. Relationships are messy. Life is messy. We all struggle in these areas. There may be moments where we're hitting it out of the park, but I've been in this game long enough with pastoring and working with families and having my own family to know that every family goes through their struggles. Some may be different than others, but life can be messy. And in those seasons, the reason why it's easy for me to say this this is my family and what we go through, is because I know that other families are also going through it. And even if for a season you have everything together and perfect, I know how life operates. And so, and we don't have to give up hope because of that, because Romans 8:28, for I know that all things work together for good for those who love him and are called according to his purpose. That's a promise. God is working all things together for good for those of us who love him and are called according to his purpose. So even my challenges and my breakdowns and in my children and my marriage and my relationships with other people, when it isn't going so well, these are perfect opportunities for growth, to really look at the triggers and look at my emotional responses to things and look at what can I do, what am I responsible for, and growing, because I know that God has brought this into my life for a reason, because he's working all things together for good for those of us who are called according to his purpose.
Good.
That was a rabbit trail.
Amanda said, it's not fair to ask us we lead to be something we're not. She said, well, that was a hard check. I thought that was good.
It is a hard check. We have to ask ourselves that all the time, right? I mean, when I see my kids behaving in a certain way, I almost always have to say, are they seeing that in me? Do they realize maybe my hypocrisy or my distractibility, or maybe they see my pursuit of God or the passion that I have for what I do, because our children, they do mimic us.
Just Melissa Rampy said, I have one that could be in a room with white walls and ceiling and floor and would still get distracted by what's in her head. How do you help them focus? I don't relate, so I don't know where to start helping her. That's relating to your window analogy. Yeah. Well, I think everybody's a little bit different, and so some people, the way they think and the way they process, they can dream, a lot of that, but we still have to learn how to do deep work, and we have to learn how to focus. And so I think starting out with tasks, like sometimes when you have, like let's say you have all this text, it's overwhelming for a student. And so you can take a piece of paper. Let me just do a little illustration. It's not going to be perfect, so forgive me for my lack of perfection, but you're going to get the idea. Okay. So I put a piece of paper and I use just this, where now I can just focus on the text in here. Now you would make it neater, obviously, and you could make it one sentence at a time. But you could use this piece of paper to help them focus on just this text rather than all that text. People like myself, we see the big picture really well, and all the details are always going on. If I go work in the warehouse, I'm going to see all the big pieces and understand how they all go together. So when I look at the warehouse, what I tend to see is this. And I'm really good at understanding how to bring together this. But sometimes when I need to focus on the deeper work, something like this is a trick that I can use to narrow the world down into just what I need to be focusing on right now. Good.
Okay?
So over in the Facebook live stream, Anika said, this is my first year homeschooling. I wish I could be a fly on the wall of a seasoned homeschool mom. But I want to follow that up with over in the app. We had a couple moms come in. Hannah said, as a homeschool veteran, I can attest we take a mental reset break daily, needed for one child or another. I walk outside or play works wonders. And then Melissa said, I've been doing this for 6 years and I still struggle to homeschool some days. So a little bit of encouragement there.
Again, Homeschooling is parenting. Parenting is messy. Our children are changing all the time. You know, from the moment they're born, right? There's this growth continuum that's happening, and they're changing as they're gaining an awareness of the world. Then they're developing skills. Suddenly it becomes a challenge because now the baby can roll, then they can crawl, then they can walk, then they're getting into everything. Now we're potty training them. Then their brains are developing. Then all of a sudden we get to a place where we're dealing with hormones and the challenges of hormones, and then we deal with a young adult who wants to have their own independence, and they're fighting against us to break free. That's parenting, and so it doesn't get any easier. I've done parenting now 30 years, and it isn't any easier. In fact, there are some days I think now it's harder because I know what's coming. And it's not that the kids are bad in any way, it's the normal ebb and flow of being a parent. And so to compartmentalize homeschooling and say, oh, the homeschooling is this, it's an extension of parenting. And so when we look at it that way, we can be a lot more tolerant, I think, to embrace it and bring it in under the parenting guise. I sure hope that resonates with somebody.
Yeah, I'm going to swipe up on a couple of these because I saw a couple come in. Staff 704 asked, she said, first timer, my third grader is very smart but is wanting to not work hard. We have tried rewards and it is not working well. Anything else to try? Thank you.
So this is a tough one to answer because there's a lot of things that you can look at, right? Third grade is still a time where we have developmental issues that could be at play. Third grade is that switch. They may not be developmentally ready for third grade work. So that's one. Most parents will say, well, I know they're ready, so ignore that. Then I have to ask, okay, what does their play life look like? Are they able to go and play by themselves? Do they need some kind of entertainment? Is there a lot of video gaming or a lot of activity? The more kids we had, the harder it was for my kids because the younger ones were constantly entertained by the activity in the house. And so it wasn't necessarily that they were playing video games and watching YouTube videos. It was just, there's always something to be entertaining us and distracted. Now that my house is quieting down a little bit again, you really begin to see that they struggle in that area. So that would be another. Then removing the distractibility. So, let's focus on just one thing, narrow it down to little achievable goals. How do you eat an elephant?
One bite at a time.
That's right. And so if your student gets easily overwhelmed by a whole page of math, break it down. If they get overwhelmed by 5 subjects, break it down to one subject, to one page. Let's just do this page. Let's call this a win when we can do one page and we can do it well. We've got time, especially in third grade, to catch up anything we've got if we can develop good work habits and good work skills. And then some students are just always going to be a little bit here, there, and everywhere. That doesn't mean that they're not going to excel just because they don't do well sitting down and doing the school, concentrating. I can name a number of successful business people who did not finish school, that started corporations and grew them, and they would have been considered, ADHD at the time that they were in school. It just wasn't the way they focused. They were much more energetic and did much better. I think one of the things that resonates with masterbooks is we try to eliminate the busy work. So with a lot of students, cutting out all the busy work and they don't have to focus quite as long, but they're still able to learn because I think learning is changing. We're grasping more information all the time, and what sticks needs to be very engaging and work.
Awesome. Melanie asked, any ideas, sticking on the track of third grade, any ideas for having one child in third grade, motivating them, and so hard to meet kids with COVID, hard to be by ourselves?
Yeah, I've always had to tell my family that we're not the first people in the world to think of the pioneers and the settlers. I mean, families would go and they would load into a wagon, go through terrible hardship, and they would go and they wouldn't have anything other than their family. I mean, I hate to say when I was young type thing, but you just didn't have all the access that children have today to things. So they're not going to break. And I think, one of the things we've had to do at different times is pray and ask the Lord to help give us insights in that area, and then bring people into our life that were needed. And so for seasons, he would set up relationships, bring people into our lives that you guys were the same ages, and have those relationships. But I think it can be easy what is human interaction? I mean, father, son, daughter, mother, like just those relationships are so strong that concentrating on and focusing and being grateful for what we do have, that we actually have the fellowship of family. There are some people that don't. They only have the relationship of their gang members or people who are, in their public school. They don't have brothers and sisters, or they don't have mom and dad or that parent relationship. And so we can be thankful for that and celebrate that and be content and live in that spot that the Lord has given to us.
A couple comments. Desiree said, keep moving forward. Just because we don't get the whole day done doesn't mean we fail. Doing some is still moving forward.
Yes.
And then Jamie said over in the Facebook live stream, I don't know why, but homeschooling as parenting was mind-blowing. I can't believe I just realized that.
Yay. I'm happy that resonated, because that is so true. So
Awesome.
Good. Is that it?
Yep.
All right, guys. Well, I hope that there was some insights that maybe you're able to personalize and recalibrate your homeschools a little bit, and that don't be discouraged, even though some days we see that there's the wins and the families who get it and it's working and we think that's awesome. Then we see the families who are struggling because they're like, but I'm not seeing those wins. Again, there are seasons and there are times where we tweak things and we recalibrate them. When you buy a gun, realizing now I just said that not everybody would buy a gun, but when you buy a gun, if you were to buy a gun and you take it home and you're going to practice shooting it, the chances are, no matter how well you are at lining the sights up and how still you are at pulling the trigger, you may still miss. Why? Because your sights aren't lined. And so you bring the sights into alignment so that when you aim and shoot, you're going to be on target. If you're just starting out homeschooling, or sometimes even the beginning of each year as you start to homeschool, think of it that way. Like, all we're doing is we're just calibrating. We're lining up the sight so when we need to and we pull the trigger, it works. And don't look at it as failure. Look at it as growth. This is what we do to be successful. We recalibrate. We're constantly assessing and calibrating so that we do better. I love the motto. Aviator, I think it was naval aviators. The motto was, better today than yesterday. Tomorrow, do it again.
That's good.
That was good. It was kind of profound. Yeah, I like that. So, and when we're not, then tomorrow will be easier because it's easier to be better than yesterday. That's a tip from a low achiever. Okay. Hey guys, have a blessed weekend, and we are, just to let you know, we are praying for you guys and your homeschools, and we want nothing more than to see you succeed. So we pray God's blessing on you. All right, good. We'll talk to you guys later. God bless.
Bye.